Okay. Thanks again for meeting with me. I just want to start just from some background information. And if you can tell me where you were born.
I was born in a town called Hoydu Besermen,
Okay. And that's in which country?
Hungary.
Okay. So I assume that you speak multiple languages?
I speak Hungarian, I speak Yiddish, I speak German, some English, and some Hebrew.
That's it? Only 5 languages? That's
it.
Okay. And what year were you born?
1933.
1930. Okay. And what is your father's name?
My father's name was Shaya
Speak
Samuel.
louder.
Okay. What was his name?
Shaya
Okay.
in Yiddish,
Shaya.
Samuel in English.
Okay.
In Hungarian.
Okay. What was your mom's name?
Irene.
Irene. Okay. And did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters.
Okay. And what were your brother's name?
My oldest brother was Eli.
How old was he? How much
He
older?
was born, I think, in 1925,
So about 9 years older? 8 years older?
approximately.
Okay. And your other one?
The next one was Nelson.
Nelson?
Actually, Aaron Nelson was his name. He was 2 years younger.
2 years younger? Okay. And you had 2 sisters, right?
Yes, one of my sisters was born in 1931.
Okay. If you can just speak up, but just a drop louder.
Yes.
1931?
One,
Okay.
right.
And what was her name?
Esther.
Esther?
She's still around.
She's still alive. I was about to ask you, are you the last of your siblings?
No, I had a younger sister who is no longer with us.
And you have the rest of your siblings? Everyone else
No.
is?
And only 3 of us left.
So it's 3 left. So
Yeah.
you, your brother, and your sister?
Me and my brother in Israel, and my sister.
And your sister. Okay. Growing up, what was the? You lived in a little shtetl. Was it a big city? Did you?
It's a medium-sized city, I'd say.
Okay, you would say it's mostly Jewish, or did you have a lot of
No,
Gentile neighbors?
predominantly Gentiles.
Predominantly Gentile.
Yeah, but we had enough a Jewish community that we have a synagogue, and we also had a separate minyan for like Hasidim, Sephardi Jews. And we had a Jewish school in town.
Okay.
Cheder and the regular school.
Okay, so when you were growing up, did your parents speak to you in Yiddish or Hungarian?
Hungarian,
Hungarian.
yes.
So how do you know Yiddish?
Well, Yiddish, my father did speak some Yiddish to us, and the Rabbi in Cheder did. But mainly I picked up after the war Yiddish because I was in the camp mostly together with Polish and Russian Jews.
So is your Yiddish better or is your German better?
Yiddish.
Okay. The reason why I asked, my father is also a survivor, and he was born in Poland, and his German is better than his Polish, because he was so many years in the camps, right? So, what did your father do for a living?
My father was in a wholesale grocery business.
Okay. And most of your customers were Jewish or
I'd say
non-Jewish?
probably Gentiles.
And how was your relationship between the Gentile community and the Jewish community?
Well, with the neighbors we got along fine. We played together as kids. And occasionally we were attacked on our way going in the morning to shul or to Cheder. Sometimes our payas was pulled or thrown little rocks at us. But otherwise,
It wasn't terrible.
it wasn't terrible, not in the years. Until the Germans came in, and then things.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover that in a minute.
Yeah.
Do you remember your grandparents?
I remember my grandmother very well, and my grandfather passed away when I must have been 3 or 4 years old.
Okay, and your grandmother passed away.
In Auschwitz.
Okay.
She ended up in Auschwitz.
So she was deported in May 1944?
We were all, yes,
1944.
1940.
About May 10th? Around May 10th?
After Pesach,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. How old was she when she passed, when she was killed?
My grandmother, how old she was, I don't really know. I would guess she must have been maybe 60.
You must have thought that was old when you were little. It doesn't seem so old now, right?
Right.
Yeah. Growing up, was it a very happy childhood until the war came?
Yes, it wasn't an unhappy one. I didn't know anything better, and my neighbors had a similar one, and my friends had a similar one.
Right.
We didn't know much because it
Right.
wasn't like we have it here. The Joneses have so much more than you have or something.
Right.
It was pretty much the same type of...
Okay. So I know that you were very, very young. You were born, you said, in 1933,
33.
which is mind-boggling. So the war broke out in 1939. You were 6.
Well, the war didn't affect us until
1944.
1944.
I'm gonna cover that. So when you were, let's say, 6, 7 years old, do you remember the chaos with World War II, or you were too young?
Not at that time.
Okay. So when's the first time, as a kid, you were a boy, you were even bar mitzvah, when was the first time you got like nervous or apprehensive, even as a young kid, reading your parents' body language?
In 1944.
You remember the month? When,
I'd say April.
in 1944.
April, yes.
And you were 11?
I was 11.
Okay. 11 years old. Were you in any type of ghetto or any?
Yes, that time we were taken into a ghetto in town for a short period of time.
Is that the same town that you were born in?
Yes,
And how many
but only for a very short period of time. Then we were taken into the next town, which was Debrecen, which was the capital of our county.
It was a larger town.
And there they had a big brick factory. That's where the Jews from the surrounding villages and towns were all gathered. And from there on...
So let me just take a step back, because this is important.
Go ahead.
The first time you were in the ghetto, you were 11. Do you remember the month that you had to go to the ghetto?
I remember it was right after the Germans came in, very shortly after.
So
It was
you'd say
after
about
Pesach, April,
about
May.
April, May. And was it a large ghetto? Was it crowded? How much do you remember of being in the ghetto?
Very little,
Very little.
very little,
Okay.
very little. But I remember when they were taken to this
The other
brick
place.
factory.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in like 10 seconds. Your memory of being in your hometown with only Jews, surrounded by barbed wire, correct?
No, I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
I
Do you
don't
remember any soldiers? Did you have problems with food, health? Do you recall any of
Not
that?
that I remember. at
Okay.
the time.
And then after you went to the other place, what was the name of the place?
Debrecen was the name of the town.
Okay.
It was a brick factory where the Jews were accumulated from all the surrounding villages.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we were, after a number of days, which I don't remember how many, we were loaded into these trains.
Cattle cars?
Cattle cars is right, congested, I don't know, 80 people without any facilities or any
Yeah.
whatsoever, and the train started going day and night. It didn't stop until we were inside Austria.
Austria.
Yeah.
So would you say
And
would you say that you traveled about 2 days in your estimation?
something like this, 2
And
to
did
3
you
days.
get any water, food
Nothing,
for 2 days? Do
nothing.
you remember that?
Yes,
And that must have been extremely difficult.
very difficult,
Were you very crowded?
very crowded.
And did you have both your parents and all your family with you?
No, I didn't. My father was taken into labor camp before. You know, adults were taken
They had to work.
had to work, and so did my 2 older brothers.
So when you were in the cattle car, who was with you?
Only my mother and 3 siblings.
A brother and a sister?
2, 3, actually 4 siblings.
Did your father live in the ghetto and then work, or did he
No,
live
my
somewhere
father
else?
went into the labor camp with my 2 brothers before.
And he lived there?
Yes.
How long? So how long were you separated?
We were separated from there until the liberation of, which was 1945 May.
No, what I meant to ask you, you were in the ghetto, and he was in a labor camp. So you were, let's say, assume you were in the labor camp. I can't pronounce the name. Brezhnev, the brick factory?
Debrecen.
So were you there about a month or so?
No, shorter than that.
Let's say a week.
Few days.
A few days. And those few days, your father and some of your siblings lived in a labor camp.
That's correct.
Were you in contact with them?
No.
And when you were deported, did your father know what happened to you and where you
No.
went? No. So that must have been a terrible time for you
We
and
didn't
for your
know
father.
of each other until we were liberated in 1945 in
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you were in the cattle car without your father? Do you remember what transpired in your mind?
Not really. I was too young to
That's what-
comprehend the severity of the situation.
Did you feel that your mother was like in a panic or upset?
I really don't remember. I cannot
I
recall.
understand. So after 2 days of traveling, you end
Yeah.
up in Austria. Was that
We
like
ended
the
up in
transit
Austria
camp?
the first time they opened up the cattle car and
So-
they gave us some water.
Some water. Do you remember where in Austria you stopped?
No.
How long did you stop in Austria?
It was a very short time.
A couple hours.
Probably.
So you got rid of the waste, and then they gave you some water.
They got some water.
Did any people die in transit that you had to
Not
get rid
that
of?
I know of.
Not
no.
that you remember. And you went from that little pit stop. What happened after that?
We were taken to Auschwitz.
Right from Austria to Auschwitz. Austria, as you know, is in Austria, and Auschwitz is in
In
Poland.
Poland, yeah.
So how long did it take from Austria to Auschwitz, which is near Krakow?
I don't remember the duration, how many days it did, but I am aware of that. We never made it to Auschwitz because we were already in Poland.
You never made it to Auschwitz?
Never made it to Auschwitz because the underground blasted the railroad tracks in Poland and the train couldn't go further.
How do you know that you were going to go to Auschwitz if you never made it there?
I know it from probably after the war, from information that was given to me. I mean, at that time I was 11 years old.
Do you know how amazing that is? That you didn't end up in Auschwitz? That's like
Yes, I mean,
shocking. So you were, once they dynamited the tracks, and then you diverted
the
elsewhere.
train went back to Austria.
You went back to Austria.
Austria in a small town near Vienna.
Do you remember the
The
name?
name is Stockerau was the name.
Stockerheimer?
Stockerau.
Stockerau. Okay. And how long were you in Stockerau?
Stockerau, we were probably close to a year.
You were there for 1 year?
Close to a year,
Is
yes.
that where you learned German?
No,
No.
no.
What did you do? What kind of camp? Was it a labor camp?
It was a camp in the town. There was barracks on one side. Jews were there, like 3 barracks, maybe 100 families or so. On the other side, there was a war, captive wars. What is that? War prisoners.
Prisoners of war.
French
French
prisoners
prisoners of
were
war.
standing there. There, we had to go to work, the adults. I was, as I say, 11 years old. I was locked up in the barracks, and I was very unhappy. And I applied that I want to go to work with.
Did your mother have to go to
Adults.
work?